The unfair matches of the Roman Colosseum.
Let's start with the unfair and slowly work our way towards the most brutal matchups on the list. Number 10, blind fighters. Antibadia were criminals who would be forced to fight completely blind.
I thought they were just ableist. I thought they just took blind people off the street and just threw them into an arena. I was about to say Rome. Rome, I know y'all nasty. I didn't know y'all like that though.
They would be given a straight sword and a helmet for protection.
Hold on, what's wrong with gay swords?
Except the helmet was practically a curse, since it was completely sealed off, preventing the fighter from seeing or hearing anything.
Nah, imagine they were just ableist and they took every disabled person and just paired them in a match against someone with the equal disability, bro. That'd be so crazy. I'm on Twitch right now. Link is in the description, so you should come join. Because if you don't...
The fight would begin as soon as the fighters were placed within close range of one another, with the most popular strategy being the swing and pray method, which in all honesty was the only strategy available.
Exactly.
Now the good news is that judges weren't really needed for these fights, since the winners were very easy to identify, as they were the only contestants still breathing. Now the crazy part is that this spectacle was seen as comedic relief more than anything, and if you don't think two blind men fighting each other to the death is hilarious, well, you have a lot to learn about comedy.
I'm not gonna lie.
Now, this might not sound that
It's so crazy how, you know, back in the day when I was growing up, like in the Roman times, everything that revolved around death was entertainment. Like, you couldn't be entertained no other way. It's either death, not reading, because if you were broke, they didn't want you to be able to read. They didn't want you to be able to write when you were broke, right? They wanted you to be blinded by mindless entertainment that involved killing people. And they wanted you to be groomed into thinking, oh, I want to go out there and kill people too for all these people entertainment because you can get paid. They didn't want you to get smarter, bro. That whole same philosophy hasn't changed much, bro. We just can't kill people on TV. I'm such a big brainer, guys. Look at my brain.
Fair at first, since both men are
smart.
equally blind and equipped with the same weapon. But think again, since the winner of the match would typically be rewarded with another match.
What?
Then another one. And another one.
I would just kill the king at that point.
And another one. You get the point. As you can imagine, a winning streak never really lasted for very long. Number 9, naval battles. There was nothing more epic than the naval battles of the Colosseum.
So cool.
Also, one of the most unfair, bloody, and expensive. The event would begin by filling the Colosseum with water in around a dozen ships.
You know how wasteful that is? A Colosseum full of water for what? How did they fill it up? So, like, what was their technology for filling it up?
It's estimated that thousands of prisoners would participate in these events. But let's talk about what made these battles unfair. Now, depending on the starting position of your ship, it could determine your likelihood of survival. Well, at least for a bit longer, as the odds of survival were almost non-existent to begin with. Ships that started in between two other ships would make for an easy target, easily creating a 1v2 scenario. Prisoners would invade other ships, killing everyone that's...
Why he look like he liked being stabbed? Why did he poo? But why does he look like he liked being stabbed? Like, he looked like he stabbed himself, and he's like scared. He's trying to get his knife back, but he's like, no, stab me harder, boy. Stab me harder. I like that. I like that.
Stood in their way, while others would simply use the more popular strategy we see today.
Swimming?
Which is, of course, running away from all fights and sneaking their way to the final round, where they can hope to steal the win with a single kill. The bloody fight would come to an end when there was only one ship or team remaining. As terrible as these battles were, at least they were easy to clean up. The Romans would try their best to remove all the large debris from the water before the stadium would be flushed like a giant toilet bowl, sending all the remains downstream for another town to deal with.
Look at that baby snacking on feet.
Number 8, gladiator fights. Gladiator fights were the single most popular matches of the Colosseum, with the good matchups typically being saved for the main event. Now, how can two gladiators fighting each other be unfair, you might ask? Well, for starters, the emperors weren't really interested in fairness, as their primary concern was entertainment.
Yeah.
And with over 20 different classes of gladiators...
Anabatata, Arbellus, Citrus, Yo, use English next time, bro. Why is scissor a class type? What type of freaky nonsense were these emperors up to? Whoever busted first dies. That was one freaked out emperor, bro.
To choose from, the styles would be mixed and matched based on entertainment alone.
You're
Here are
pronouncing them
some of
wrong,
the most
prove it.
unfair and popular matchups. Retiarius versus Secutor. Retiarius were equipped with a net, a trident, a dagger, and minimal armor.
Who do they think they are? Aquaman? Like, what that trident ain't about to do nothing, bro. I think he Namor.
While the Secutor was equipped with a
Only know Namor because of Marvel Rivals.
sword, a large shield, a helmet, and heavy armor. Go ahead, pick one.
I would choose the guy on the right.
If you chose the Secutor, well, GG's, you're dead. As the Retiarius just had to keep his distance and poke at the Secutor.
Oh, I'm cooked. Oh, I thought that shield was tanking all of that. My fault. My fault, bro.
Or better yet, trap him by throwing his net on him, giving him enough time to emote before poking him to death. Alright, let's try another one. Murmillo versus Thorax. Murmillo were armed with a large rectangular shield, a short sword, a helmet,
The sword is short, so I'm assuming they're gonna lose.
and a metal or leather sleeve for protection, while the Thorax was equipped with a light shield, a curved sword, a helmet, and a metal or leather sleeve for protection. Go ahead, pick one.
The eyes on the helmet on the left does not look like they can see. I feel like I'm about to be deceived again. Okay, these matchups aren't as unfair as you're making them on to be, man. I actually have no clue. Who y'all choosing, left or right? I want to say right because the sword is longer. Why does the title say solo leveling? Because we watched solo leveling earlier. Duh.
If you chose the Murmillo, rip, you're dead. As the
Okay,
Thorax
thank
just
God.
had to tire out the Murmillo since he was carrying the heavier shield. As you can see, stylistic matchups were a big deal and could easily influence the outcome of a fight. And I know this might come as a shock to
That's not the reason why I thought the one was gonna win though, so.
some, but not all gladiator fights were to the death. A lot of fights would be called off when a fighter took heavy damage, since good gladiators were very expensive to replace. Number 7. Animal battles. Humans were not the only ones to have unfair matchups inside of the Colosseum, since animals were also treated like criminals. They would be enslaved, pinned against each other, and humiliated,
What the heck?
and were such a popular spectacle that at times, thousands of animals would be slaughtered in a given day.
I'm not gonna lie though. That's what it's like playing tabs. Like that's really what it's like playing tabs. We all are curious, hey, what animal is gonna win in this regard? Like we all think that.
Which was completely unsustainable.
Like whatever crazy thoughts we have now, like I wonder what would happen if that happened. They just did it from the public to see because there was no rules or regulation against it.
Driving many animals to extinction. Here are some of the most popular and unfair matchups that were
Many to extinction? Huh?
commonly seen in the Colosseum. Elephant versus rhino. One of the most famous
Elephant got
Colosseum
this, bro.
battles was when an
Why is the rhino pregnant?
enraged rhino was pinned against an elephant, with the elephant eventually winning when he decided to cheat by grabbing a spear with its trunk and gouging the rhino's eyes out.
What?
Lion versus tiger. This
gotta
matchup
be
is
kept.
basically a robbery,
Lion
as I'm
versus
sure the
tiger?
locals would have bet large amounts of money
What?
against the guys from out of town, since they knew that the lion always wins, with there only being one recorded incident of a tiger getting the best of a lion. Elephant versus
Tiger versus lion. I wasn't even. Wait, what? Hold on.
grabbing a spear with its trunk
I
and
was half
gouging the
listening.
rhino's eyes
I
out.
miss-
Lion versus tiger.
My brain said that lion was a cat. So I thought they were doing a cat versus a tiger, just a house cat. And I was so confused.
This matchup is basically a robbery,
Okay,
as I'm
yes,
sure
tiger,
the locals
easy
would have
win.
bet large amounts of money against the guys from out of town, since they knew that the lion always wins, with there only being one recorded incident of a tiger getting the best of a lion.
Wait, what?
Elephant
Wait, what? Huh? Wait, a tiger not taking a lion one-on-one? That actually doesn't make sense. A tiger is bigger, stronger. I don't know if it's faster, but they literally hunt alone. Who wins in a fight, lion or tiger? The tiger. In a fight between a lion and tiger, the tiger would usually win. Although lions have a one-on-one, a Siberian tiger comes out on top. So what is happening here? No, that was a fake tiger. No. Someone's lying. Because who's faster, lion or tiger? Lions aren't even faster than tigers. Tigers outdo lions in every way. Speed, strength, solo fighting. Cause tigers ride solo. Nah, someone capping, bro. That don't even make sense.
Versus bull. As you can imagine, when an animal has over 10,000 pounds on its opponent, it's not really going to be much of a fight, is it? But just to make matters worse, sometimes the elephant and the bull would be chained together, forcing the action. And no matter how the fight begins, it would always end with the bull being turned to soup. Really quickly, here are some of the other animal fights that were very popular. Rhino versus bear, rhino versus buffalo, rhino versus elephant, crocodile versus hippo, tiger versus bear.
Okay, let's talk about how stupid some of these matchups are.
The other animal fights that were very popular.
Let's talk about how stupid
rhino versus bear.
That's kind of stupid, but I think the rhino would come out on top. But like, that's not that stupid. I'm not mad at that.
Rhino versus buffalo.
I'm not stupid. I'm not mad at that per se, but I think the rhino got it.
Rhino versus elephant.
I think that's stupid because just look at how big the elephant is.
Crocodile versus hippo.
That's the most ridiculous match I think I've ever heard of. Like the crocodile is literally already on the ground to be stomped on by the hippo. Like what is this?
Tiger versus bear.
The bear got that, but I like that. That's a nice matchup. Considering bears don't beat lions, apparently. I don't know. I mean, lions can't beat tigers, apparently. I don't know what lions. I'm saying it all backwards. Tigers can't beat lions, apparently. So I don't know what tigers can get.
Bear versus bull.
That's not a good one.
Bear versus wolves.
That's not a good one.
Goro versus scorpion. Okay. Lion versus bull.
That's not a good one.
Lion versus bear.
Oh, I think the bear got that one.
Lion versus panther.
Lion got that one easy. Panthers are just, they're just leopards.
Lion versus chimp.
Ooh, chimps getting murked. But if there's multiple chimps, lions
lion versus hyenas.
That don't even, hyenas? Like multiple? Okay, that could be one. You know, we all watch Lion King.
Lion versus basically any animal the Romans can get a hold of. Number 6, 1 versus 2. This matchup can be.
That's why they call Lion King of the Jungle, because they were lying on lions in the Colosseums. Because the tiger not losing to no lion, bro. No. Okay, hold on. Who has a stronger bite force, lion or tiger? Tiger even has bite force. That don't make sense. No, that really pissed me off. I don't see how I don't see how lions win. I don't see how lions win whatsoever, bro.
And fair for either side depending on the circumstances. Let me explain. There are 2 scenarios in which this matchup can take shape. 1. A high-level gladiator will take on 2 prisoners simultaneously. As the prisoners try their best to figure out how to properly hold a sword, they will realize that it's very difficult to do so,
and they'll die
since their hands are no longer attached. Now, the second scenario is a bit more fair. 3 well-trained gladiators were placed inside of the Colosseum. One gladiator would be given heavy armor and a good weapon, while his 2 opponents would receive minimal armor and worse weapons.
Okay.
The duo would need to work together to defeat the better-equipped man. But being partnered up is not as easy as you might think, and does come with its own set of challenges. Like knowing whether you should go for the res or attempt to clutch up when your partner inevitably goes down.
That is true.
The last and final way that a gladiator can be outnumbered is during large-scale battles. This one is of course purely based on luck alone and doesn't always mean that you will see a 1v2 matchup, as it just might be a 1v6 depending on how bad your team is.
Like, he is getting jumped. Like, dude's flying out of the crowd to jump this man.
Number 5, woman versus dwarf. Emperor Domitian introduced
No, Dimension's an a-hole. Dimension is a-hole, bro.
the legendary matchup, woman versus dwarf. And I have to admit, this is the only battle on the list where a clear winner was not well documented. But even with the little information we do have, I have a gut feeling that it just wasn't a fair matchup. I'm just not certain for whom. You see, on one hand, you have a fully
I have
grown
no
woman who
clue.
obviously has the reach advantage.
Like, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, that's a good matchup though, because I don't know who wins. I think it's high diff for whoever though. Dwarf obviously is not obvious. Dwarves don't have reach. There's no reach there, bro. Like, this is a high diff matchup. Like, weapons really matter in this situation.
While on the other hand, you have a male dwarf who is much stronger and obviously uses magic. How much stronger? Well, I'm not sure.
That's
I
a
did,
great
however,
question,
stumble
bro.
upon this forum where a guy
A dwarf man generally weaker or stronger than non-dwarf women?
asked the same question
is
back in
asking.
2011. Now, sadly, people just replied back with even more interesting questions that we will never get the answers to.
So we don't
And
even
of
know.
course, naturally, the entire forum devolved into guys just bragging about how many dwarves they can take on at once. One of the most bizarre things about this matchup was that
bro.
Emperor Domitian liked to schedule this fight at night, since he preferred this battle when it was illuminated by torchlights. In 2010, a female gladiator's remains were found in England. After they were examined, it was concluded that the woman's legs and arm bones were unusually heavy, suggesting that she had strong muscles. You know, I was originally leaning towards the dwarf, but now I really don't see how they could possibly win.
I don't see how they
Number
win either, bro. Like, they're having that low of a reach, it just doesn't do good for you. But they could stab in the knee. Like, you have to guard your knees more than you would have to do a normal sized person, bro. Average sized person. I shouldn't say normal. Normal is not the right word. Average sized person. Yo, that's a matchup, dog. You see, yo, Dimitri, what was it? Whatever his name was, he was onto something. I'm not gonna lie. He was onto something.
4. Wild animal hunts. Perhaps one of the most
Ooh.
unique spectacles of the Colosseum was the wild animal hunts. Here, the entire Colosseum arena was made to resemble the animal's natural environment. A few men were then brought out to the arena equipped with small shields and weapons. Then for the next few minutes or hours, the arena would be slowly filled with terrifying predators. But if they really wanted to
That's
get the
so
crowd on
cool,
their
bro.
feet, all the animals would be released at once.
That's like such an interesting concept. I hate that people had to die for this, but like, if this was a game, I'm thinking of all this in like game terms. Like, this is a cool game design. Like, if you're thrown in a Colosseum and you're fighting in front of a bunch of people for your right to get out, like, why is this not in a game? Like, this should be a game thing. This kind of reminds me, there's this one Call of Duty map. I forgot which Black Ops it was, but you were in a Coliseum and like instead of a dog round, it was tigers. What game is that, chat? Y'all know? Y'all remember which it was a Call of Duty where they were in a Coliseum, zombies in a Coliseum?
Sometimes the men who were fighting
Was
the
it 4?
lions, bears, and
Black Ops 3 or
panthers
4?
would have been well-trained fighters, while other times they would have been condemned criminals who were just given the death sentence and stood 0 to no chance of winning. Here are some of
That was not Black Ops 2.
the animals you could have expected to make an appearance. Lions, tigers,
course, of
bears,
course.
elephants, rhinos, panthers,
Elephants? Rhinos? Oh yeah, no, they got hoed.
leopards, hyenas,
They got
wolves,
hoed.
boars, bulls, deers, ostriches, crocodiles,
Oh, those are easy
giraffes,
claps.
camels, and shiprats. Of course, shiprats were not invited, but they showed up anyways.
Okay.
Number 3, man versus beast. Man versus beast matches were
I've
one-on-one
seen that.
battles and were the second most popular spectacle, only behind gladiator fights. Now, there were basically 2 ways that this matchup would be arranged, with both of them tailored for maximum entertainment for the crowd. The first one was
I
when a
think it was
professional
Black Ops
slave
4
or volunteer
because it wasn't a good map, and every map that I think of that's not good is tied to Black Ops 4. Black Ops 4 was just whack.
fighter
Walker, who's winning, you or the Coliseum? There's probably not a single person in that Coliseum that could take me on. I'm gonna keep it a buck.
known as a bestiarius would face off
Including
with
the
a
animals.
terrifying beast. The animal could be anything from a lion, leopard, tiger, bear, or any other large and powerful creature. These battles would typically end with the animal being defeated, even if the bestiarius took heavy damage. On the other hand, the second matchup was much more bloody and typically ended with the man being torn to pieces. Here, a criminal or prisoner of war would be forced to face off with the animal. With little to no training, it was only a matter of time before the man would become an anatomy lesson.
Yeah.
And it definitely didn't help that the animals were starved for long periods of time before they were
Yeah.
brought out, making them a lot more angry and aggressive.
I told 'em
there
stop
was even
starving
a
those
single
animals,
lion that
but-
took out over 200 men before it was finally defeated, which is obviously a padded record, since it clearly fought nothing but tomato cans.
That's what I'm saying. Tomato cans. What are you, Chris Broussard? You calling his opponents tomato cans? You don't think I know where you got that from? You had to get that from Chris Broussard. First things first is such a banger sports show, bro.
Oh, I should also mention there is another event that was very popular and is somewhat related, where a criminal was tied to a stake and then a wild animal would be released to eat him alive.
That's not an animal, that's
you
an
would
alien.
think that this would be one of those situations where if you've seen it once, then you've seen them all type of deal. But apparently some emperors love to show this one quite often. Number 2, prisoner versus professional gladiator. Easily one of the most unfair matchups of the Colosseum was when prisoners would face off against a professional and seasoned gladiator. The professional gladiator could have been a slave himself with many fights under his belt, or a volunteer gladiator that was part of one of the many gladiatorial schools. Either way, the criminal with 0 to no experience was basically sentenced to death. You see, what could be worse than being invaded, enslaved, and kept inside of a cell for days, just to be given a weapon you have never used, then pushed to the center of the Colosseum floor, only for Spartacus to make his walkout shortly after you. Number 1, rigged fights. What could be more unfair than rigged matches?
Of course,
Emperor
rigged,
Commodus was definitely the worst offender when it came to rigged matches. That's why he ugly.
Is that Lil Dicky? You can't tell me that's not Lil Dicky, bro. What's going on right here?
The emperor ruled Rome from 180 to 192 AD and was even portrayed by Joaquin Phoenix in the 2000 film Gladiator. Commodus was obsessed with becoming a famous and well-respected gladiator, so much so that he would even compete himself. Well, if you could even call it that. An emperor fighting as a gladiator was unheard of. Now, of course, Commodus had the best training in all of Rome and was actually very talented with the sword. But that wouldn't stop him from rigging fights by secretly injuring men just moments before they were brought out to face him. His opponents were injured in a way that could be concealed under their armor, but be devastating enough to hinder their performance or make a limb unusable. Another strategy that the emperor would use was simply fighting men with 0 to no experience, making for another easy W. Emperor Commodus would have the longest undefeated record as a gladiator, and it's suspected that he competed hundreds of times. He would also charge the Roman treasury around 25,000 pieces of silver every time he competed. There are many things you could call Emperor Commodus, but one thing you can't say is that he ever discriminated, since animals were also injured and thrown in to face him.
Oh my goodness.
Apparently, he killed hundreds of lions, ostriches, some giraffes.
He killed hundreds of lions. You're telling...
And on one occasion, even killed 3 elephants that were just laying on the floor.
3 elephants.
Now, as horrible as this all sounds, this was all just a warm-up. And in November of 192 AD, he held the Polybian Games, a festival that lasted around 2 weeks.
That was really just
Commodus shot hundreds of animals with arrows and javelins every single day.
Hundreds.
But if it makes you feel any better, 1 month after the Polybian Games, Commodus would be strangled to death inside of his bathtub by a professional wrestler named Narcissus. Which, for a man, that has to be the most embarrassing way to be found dead.
Narcissus?
Completely naked inside of a cold tub. You can't even explain your way out of that one.
Wait, is that where narcissism comes from? Where does narcissism come from? Greek mythology, Narcissus, but the coin close to the 19th century. Interesting. That's a fire name by him. I'm not gonna lie. Fire video good enough.